On this episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone, we're going to talk about Tuesday's wrestling. We got AEW Dark and Impact Wrestling. So we're going to review both shows and talk about it on this episode of Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Hey everyone, this is J-Rod here for Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things pro wrestling from AEW, NXT, New Japan, Impact Wrestling, the NWA, and many other promotions, matches, wrestlers, and championships. So we're going to do all of that today. Well, some of the stuff, not that I'm going to mention, even though I mentioned AEW, Dark, and of course, Impact Wrestling. But before I start, hope you guys catched up with the news that happened with it's been running around about Kairi Sane. If you guys heard, Kairi Sane saying she's done with WWE. If you guys recall, months ago, I even mentioned this on a previous episode, that Kairi Sane has been, of course, unhappy with her position being there, being away from who back then was her fiance, not her husband. Originally, they just revealed more information about Kairi Sane. It turns out that in order to keep her happy, they were going to use her as an ambassador for WWE in order to establish what we have been speculating for a long time, that they were going to expand the NXT globally. I explained much of that information, but apparently that's not going to be happening at this point due to the fact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and they're saying they want to end her in-ring career with WWE, but there is talk that Kairi Sane may be heading back to Japan once she's done. She may be wrestling one more year back in Japan, and then she'll officially retire. There was reports coming in prior months ago that Bushiroad were intending to get Kairi Sane and Io Shirai back, since if you guys know, Bushiroad now owns Stardom. So that's pretty much to remind you guys. I'll keep more updates on this. So let's get started with AEW Dark. Alright, so we're here for AEW Dark. Let's talk about the first match of the night. It's Brian Pillman Jr. making his debut in AEW Dark versus Shawn Spears. Now, if you guys been aware during Fyter Fest, Brian Pillman Jr. was there in attendance and this and that, so he is officially wrestling for AEW, but not officially. I'll explain to that you guys a little later. This match was good. It showed a bit more of Brian Pillman, even though he's been in the business for nearly 2 years. But he did showcase much what he can do in ring. But fortunately, it wasn't enough for Shawn Spears, since we all know how he ends the whole thing. You know, one punch with the little loaded thing on the glove. So that's how it ends. Then we have a women's match. We have Rachel Chanel. I never heard of her, but she faced against Big Swole. Much of the match, you guys know, Britt Baker has been, blubbering her mouth in front of Big Swole, all this and that. She hasn't forgiven her for what happened the last 2 times when she dumped her in the dumpster and tossed her trash all over the plexiglass. So it was so funny. So Big Swole took the victory on this one. It was an okay match, I'm not gonna lie. Then we had an interview with Allie and Brandy Rhodes. As you all know, they don't get along. As you all know, Allie has been involved with the Nightmare family since she hooked up with QT Marshall. As you all know, QT Marshall is still stuck. No word yet. As you know, a couple weeks ago, he contracted the COVID-19 through a non-wrestling acquaintance. Already went to see a doctor. That he came up positive, and he notified Tony Khan. So that whole storyline is becoming interesting. We have seen them in the past where they faced off, countless times. Even in the early times during when AEW launched, there was that rivalry. I don't know if that's the kind of angle they're going to go with, like continuing the rivalry now that Awesome Kong is no longer working in the ring, but she will be doing backstage. She's one of the coaches, from what I understand. So it's a very unusual relationship. Next match is an 8-man tag. It was Tony Donati, Fabo Andres, Joe Alonso, and Brady Pierce versus Lucha Brothers and the Butcher and the Blade. This was a unique team setup between the Lucha Brothers and the Butcher and the Blade because they are very unique in certain ways. Some great offense that they put out, including some butting heads with each other, where Butcher tells Penta, Cero Miedo. As you all know, that's means no fear, which is Pentagon lived by a lot. So it was a good match, but also at the same time, I felt this shows like, okay, the good chemistry that both the Lucha Brothers along with the Butcher and the Blade, how they get along. It was great dynamics. I liked it. But the real question is, how would this affect with both FTR and the Young Bucks? Since we all know there's been like a professional jealousy between them, or rivalry, however you want to call it. But Excalibur made that good point about it. But of course, the Butcher and the Blade, along with the Lucha Brothers, pick up the win. So we just gotta wait to what's gonna happen this coming Wednesday for Fyter Fest. Next match, it was, let's call it a squash match between Will Hobbs from All Pro Wrestling versus Freshly Squeezed Orange Cassidy, and he just took him out with the Superman punch. Yeah, very short timing. It was very interesting. Next match is Sean Dean versus Michael Nakasawa. We haven't seen him for a while, but who could forget Michael Nakasawa? Of course, bringing the Turkish style. Even Aubrey Edwards grabbed the oil and tossed it. She's like, even though she's not a fan of Michael Nakasawa's antics. But he did win the match when he pulled out his thong. Yeah, disgusting. So he won the match, but post-match, you're not going to guess who was right there in front of him. Alex J. Bailey. Now, if you guys don't recall, a couple years ago, when New Japan were doing that whole CEO thing, Alex J. Bailey was injured. He was supposed to be against Michael Nakasawa, so he faced them while he's injured. And the following year, what's his name? Yeah, the following year, Michael kind of made remarks about him, calling him Mr. Cripple, and he got him in the match at Fyter Fest. Michael Nakasawa won. So basically, it's a tie between the two. If you can tell, Alex Tribili still wants a piece of him. So this is far from over between the rivalries between those two. I would love to see another rematch between those. Next match, we got Simpetico versus Scorpio Sky. Good match. I frankly enjoyed how this one went. I loved it. It was amazing. I didn't know what to expect. I was like, wow, pretty cool. So it was like a very interesting dynamic. But also, I forgot, if you guys want to know who won that one, Scorpio. His SU mate, Frankie Kazarian, I skipped one. Frankie Kazarian was in a match against Luther. He won that match too. It was pretty good. We are seeing much of the SU guys also can do great else also in singles competition, but recently with SCU they've been doing Frankie and Daniels are in fact going to be doing the tag team, while Sky will be doing the singles competition. Now the final match, it was Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon along with Leva Bates versus Dark Order's Evil Uno and Stu Grayson. So basically we thought it would be over between both Cutler and Avalon, but it's not. They're continuing with their matches, and they didn't get the win, but it was awesome with the way they tried to take out the other members of the Dark Order, Reynolds, Silver, 10, and 5. So basically, but no other members were there. No Mr. Brody, but Evil Uno and Stu Grayson took the victory for the Dark Order. But we're going to see Stu Grayson tomorrow at Fyter Fest when he teams up with his boss, Mr. Brody Lee, along with Colt Cabana. So I think that's pretty much it what we got for that. But before I end it, you guys probably ask yourselves, why is Brian Pillman there? Isn't he with MLW? Well, it has been revealed, as you all know, recently MLW hasn't done any shows recently. The last one was in March 13th in Tijuana, Mexico. They were doing the little super series with AAA. They haven't done any shows since then because they took the whole thing with the COVID-19 very seriously. Originally, there were reports coming in before this, that MLW were considering doing an empty arena type of show, but there's still no word yet. They haven't had any word. Brian Pillman said that he doesn't know what his position is there yet. As you all know, every wrestler and every promotion, with the exception of WWE, they never were released. Brian Pillman was not out, but according to MLW, they are giving Brian Pillman the blessing to wrestle as long as he's still under contract with MLW. So that's pretty much it. I will speak more on that as soon as possible. There's an interview that he did with this guy from Wrestle Talk Interviews, Louis Dangoon, I think that's his name. He was talking. I'll explain that on the upcoming episodes for that, and explain more what's the situation with MLW now with AEW. So I think that's it for now. So let's move on with Impact Wrestling. Alright, so we're starting now with Impact Wrestling. We're not that far off from Slammiversary. I'm excited for that. I hope you guys are excited. We still don't know who are the former WWE talent who were released back on April 15th that we call as the Dark Day of Wrestling, or Black Wednesday, as you call it. I'm excited, so let's start with the first match. It's a Knockouts tag team. Rosemary teaming with Taya Valkyrie, being accompanied by Johnny E. Bravo, versus Susie and Kylie Ray. I like this match. It was good. As you all know, there's like another stories in this whole thing. As you all know, something is up between both Rosemary and Johnny Bravo. No one knows what's going on. Some people think there's a romantic relationship or something. So, Rosemary, I don't know if Taya's clueless, but we do know that Taya has a problem with both Susie and Kyrie Lee. You know, try to get on her skin, all this and that. So, it was a good match, I'm not going to lie. Kylie Ray really impressed me a lot, as always. You know, I've known about her for almost a year, but I'm glad that she is in Impact. You know, I spoke about her. Me and Nico talked about her before, about why she left and all this and that. But there was a moment in the match where Rosemary was out. Johnny Bravo was kind of attending to her. Because of that, they lost the match. Susie and Kylie Ray won the match. I don't know what's happening. It feels like a matter of attention. Like Rosemary's giving the attention to Johnny, but at the same time, it's Taya who's asking Rosemary's attention. It's more like a triangle. You know what I mean? Like a very sick relationship triangle. I'm not sure. Then we see in the back, as you all know, Johnny Swinger is banned from being on Chris Bay's corner. He made some remarks about the refs, how dumb they are. They didn't see it, and the ref heard his comments, and he banned him from being at ringside. So basically, he screwed himself from this. So he said he has a plan, and even though I don't know what it is, he wants to ensure that Chris Bay comes out at top, becoming the X Division champion. So we're just gotta see. The next match is a fatal four-way tag team match. The Deaners versus Reno Scum versus Triple XL versus TJP and Fallah Ball. This was a very interesting dynamic. As you all know, there's a tense rivalry between TJP and Fallah Ball versus the Reno Scum. As you recall, weeks ago, Reno Scum decided to point the finger at TJP and Fahabao to the Rascals, claiming that they were still unhappy that they lost to them. They didn't appreciate Reno Scum, trying to get away with it. So this rivalry is now taking its toll. Give me a second. Sorry about that. So basically, it's becoming more intense. They beat them in a 2-on-2 match a week ago, and now this is more. The rivalry still continues between Reno Scum and Fahaba TJP, and they took it back into the locker room while the Deaners and Triple XL. The Deaners kind of really impressed me more too, because we hardly see them more often since the COVID-19 happened. Cody Deaner has been in Canada, stuck there. Cousin Jake has been in the States wrestling. But it was great to see the Deaners win, pick up a win. Hopefully they do get an opportunity for the Impact World Tag Team titles down the line, as much as we want to see TJP and Fahaba. But as soon as the match was over, the rivalry between TJP and Fahaba was still continuing. Reno Scum, of course, well known to take care of business in the backstage, took out Faha and TJP. So, as we all know, the rivalry is not over. Then we jump into another sequence with Swinger. He found 2 costumes. One costume we may recognize, but I failed to mention last week, is the costume of Super Eric. Yeah, Super Eric is coming back. And then so he tossed the costume. But he decided to wear the costume of Suicide. So he decided to get away with it. Then we jump into a Impact Plus flashback moment of the week. The beautiful people that was consistent at the time with Madison Rain, Velvet Sky, Lacey Von Erich, who at the time both Lacey and Velvet Sky were the TNA Knockouts champion, and Angelina was facing against Angelina Love and Tara. But here's the stipulation. This one, if either Madison Rain or Velvet Sky pin either Tara or Angelina Love, one of them will become the new Knockouts champion. So it was intense, but of course, Lacey Von Erich, being on the outside of the ring, got away with it, took out Tara, and costing her to lose the title. So basically, all 3 women of the beautiful people took the title. So this one was a part of Lockdown 2010. So don't remember much of this. I haven't seen much of the TNA. If I had Impact Plus, then maybe I'll let you guys know. Then we jump in with a let's see, Sami Callihan and Ken Shamrock talking. So basically, Shamrock is well aware that Sami at the main event is going to face against Josh Alexander. Now, Sami still doesn't know why he helped him last week when Ken Shamrock was confronting the North. But he doesn't know why. But they do consider themselves being the world's most dangerous tag team. I mean, that is a good ring. I mean, Shamrock's dangerous, so does Sami. When you put both of them together, they are extremely dangerous. But Shamrock did extend his hand, saying that if he needs his help, he'll be right there. Even though Shamrock, he didn't need it. But we'll see what happens when we get to the main event. Next thing we see is a knockout match, a non-title match. Kimberly versus the current Impact Wrestling's knockouts champ, Jordan Grace. This match was alright, I'm not gonna lie, it was okay, I enjoyed it, but there were some moments where it took Kimberly a long time to try to put down Jordan Grace. Like, what's it gonna take to beat her? She tried every move, every swanton, every enziguri, but Jordan still come out on top as always. She pick up the victory. She won the match, and then here comes Donna Pizarro with a message to Jordan Grace saying that she will become the next Knockouts champion. Now, the top of the story here is we all know recently Tessa Blanchard is now terminated from Impact Wrestling, but at the same time, she was stripped from the Impact World title. So it's still anybody's game. So there were several changes. Michael Elgin is no longer part of Impact since allegations against him arose during the Speaking Out movement. So they give a little background on both Eddie Edwards, Ace Austin, and Trey. We know Eddie Edwards has been TNA World Champion, 5-time TNA Tag Team and 2-time X Division Champion. But he still get to regain the World Championship. And then you got Ace Austin, who's been exemplary in the X Division, but he is willing to become the youngest world champion at the age of 24 and all that. Trey, who has been hungry becoming champion, but he still hasn't forgotten what Ace Austin did to him. He sent his monster Madman Fulton to take him out, not once but twice. But everybody, it seems they're focused on each other, but they're forgetting another element that was posted by Impact Wrestling. There's a fourth mystery opponent. It's still unclear who it is. The mystery opponent has been rumored it could be a former world champion. Like, it could be from WWE or MLW, but it's one of the guys who was recently released by WWE. It could be EC3. It could be anybody we know. Both Trey, Austin, and Eddie are not concerned. But if I was a betting man, I should be concerned because I don't know who I'm facing. I don't know if it's who is the guy who I'll be facing. It could be EC3. It could be anybody. But they're mostly focused on all three of them. But whoever the mystery opponent is, I think this is going to be the game changer. They're going to be unprepared. They're saying they are prepared, but could you be prepared who is the fourth opponent? That's a mystery that has to be talked about. Now, the next segment we see, Willie Mack runs into Johnny Swinger disguised as Suicide. So what happened is Willie Mack told him that he discussed this with Suicide, that they were going to be in a match for the X Division Championship. Now, Swinger had no idea what was happening. So basically, he screwed himself over this. Thought it was so funny that he had no idea what he did. And Willie Mack was unaware about that Suicide was not him. It was Johnny Swinger. He didn't notice the chest. That's how Johnny Swinger is. He likes to show us his chest. He missed it. But, so, that's kind of funny. Then we see a little locker room talk with Madison Rayne. She had only one guest. Let's call it me, myself, and I. So she's been going back and forth talking about this. She had no guest. She gets interrupted by Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz until Havoc and Nevaeh showed up and they started brawling. So basically it became good. So basically this rivalry between both teams, it's far from over. So kind of interesting to see that. Now the next thing we see is another arm wrestling segment with Hernandez, and this time it was Rhino, and it kind of went to be continued. I don't know who would win between those two. Then we had the X Division Championship match between Willie Mack versus Suicide, really Johnny Swinger. I think Willie Mack at some point later in the match he realized that's not Suicide, it's Swinger. He's the only one who can act as dumb. He's not acting as the Suicide that he knows. So Swinger screwed himself over, realizing that he thought he could beat him, but no, it didn't happen that way. Then we see in a formal apology by Tommy Dreamer. As you know, a week ago, Moose was in a match against Crazy Steve, and Moose found himself offensive that Steve called him a fake champion. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not the world champion. Moose always claim he is the world champion. So Dreamer kind of gave an apology and this and that. So basically, he got into saying this, that I talked to the TNA committee, I talked to the championship, and then Moose is saying there is no TNA commissioner, and it's exactly. So he was trying to tell him you're not a champion. So he basically got to him, to his head. So if he's saying there is no TNA, then why is he still carrying the title? So basically, he's messing around with his head. So it's been announced that Moose has to put his TNA title on the line against Tommy Dreamer. So that's going to be very interesting to see. Now, our main event is Josh Alexander along with Ethan Page versus Sami Callihan. Now, as you all know, Ethan Page is very sadistic to see to ensure that Josh Alexander wins. Every moment he had, he did that. But at one moment when he knocked out the referee, Shamrock shows up and he put him in the ankle lock real hard. Now we don't know if this could be the sign that Ethan Page and Josh Alexander, the North, could lose the titles. We don't know. It would be interesting to see Ken Shamrock and Sami try to get along for when they face off with the North at Slammiversary on the 18th of July. So that's how it ended. But this is the best part that happened. After the show, they kept doing that promo with the recently released WWE wrestlers. We still don't know who they are, but there have been glimpses of wrestlers who may appear. The Good Brothers, Anderson and Gallows, Mike Bennett, EC3, Eric Young, a few others. It's still unclear who it is, but the strange thing part, it's where 3 drinks were placed and 3 hands came out. Does this mean there's another stable faction coming out? We do know the Aces and 8 are returning, and there's more to that. So I think that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I will follow up more if there's any more wrestlers have been indicating who will be coming to Impact. Now that's the mystery. Now there have been indications, it's already been official recently, that both Gallows and Anderson are signed with Impact, but they also got a lucrative deal to work with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited, but we also may see Heath Ledger. He made an announcement. He already closed his chapter with WWE last Monday on Raw. I didn't see it, but I think that's about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I will see you guys the next time. So I must bid all of you adieu. So goodbye. Mwah. Have a nice day.